Welcome back, everybody, and welcome to session 8A. You know, during this pandemic, cities and communities have all had to work together and cross borders, and we have an excellent panel here of some leaders within many of these communities and several all-stars here. And I'm going to turn it over to Reid Wick, the pride of New Orleans. Take it away, Reid.
Well, I don't know if I'd claim that title. You know, I'm down in New Orleans. And thanks, Storm. I appreciate it. Thanks, Storm and Gigi and everybody in Amplify, the whole team. I know it takes a village to put this on. So we didn't really designate a moderator, so I guess I just got sort of designated, but we'd like to do some introduction. We're going to jump across the pond and ask Audrey to introduce herself, and we'll make our way around.
Hey everybody. Thanks for inviting me on this session. My name is Audrey Guerre, and I coordinate a European association called Live DMA. Live DMA is a European network representing live music associations and representing over 4,000 music venues, clubs, and festivals in Europe.
Awesome. And going down the line, I guess we'll keep going alphabetically and go to Kate Becker in Seattle.
Thanks, Reid. Hello, everyone. I am Kate Becker, and these days I am the Creative Economy and Recovery Director in the Office of King County Executive Dow Constantine. So I am working at a regional level across the county on all things creative economy.
Awesome. We'll head up to Chicago. Scott, to say hello.
How you doing? Scott Fetters, Director of 2112. We run a 160,000 square foot facility where we say any level of artist, any level of creative aligned business, there's a home for you and the resources to get to the next level. And then launched this last February the Center for Creative Entrepreneurship to expand the resources beyond our community. Thanks,
Scott. And so my name is Reid Wick. I am based in New Orleans, as Storm referenced, and I work for the Recording Academy. We are best known for the Grammy Awards, but we are a membership organization for professionals in the music industry, either as creators or on the more pro administrative side of the industry. And while I work in the membership and industry relations department, I've spent a lot of time over the last bunch of years working in the public policy and economic development space as it relates to music industry. And our topic, I guess, was kind of to look at how we work within our cities and our regions. And we had a little prep call yesterday, and it just seems like there's so many different things that are going on, and I know we won't have enough time to cover it all, but I think I want to start with Kate. And you know, you brought up a couple of interesting things and yesterday, and I'd love to hear a little bit about maybe we start with your 5-state region kind of work that you're working on, and then we can also touch on some of the national stuff with reps.
Terrific. Thanks, Reid. So I didn't mention that King County is where Seattle, Washington is. So just for reference point, that is the county that we are talking about. And right now, all of our live music venues remain completely closed. No one is back in business yet. We are waiting for the announcement from the governor as to when general admission can start happening again. So those venues, as you all well know, were first to close and will be the last to open. So we've been working in a variety of cohorts to really figure out how to help our music ecosystems make it to the finish line of getting some funding and some opportunity to reopen. And one of the things we've been doing is called the Cascadia Music Corridor, which we actually started before COVID, but it has really required focus during this time when our music ecosystems have been so severely impacted. And so we're working with Alaska, Idaho, Oregon, and BC. So we have an international component because between the state of Washington and Alaska is the province of British Columbia. So we're working together to collect some data and figure out touring routes is one of our goals, right? If we're all opening in different phases, how do we get musicians back on the road? What can we do to support each other? Where can we connect to make sure that they know what opportunities exist for them, what to expect as they cross state and country lines, that kind of thing. So that is a cohort of 5 different regions working together in the Northwest.
One question I have related to that is while you're talking about, coordinating routing of tours and things like that, is there also coordination between the different entities with regard to the policies and trying to coordinate, the governors in each region to kind of announce at the same time or share knowledge or resources? Maybe that kind of, you could fold that into where Revs is going too.
Right. So frankly, Reid, there is not at this time. Early on in the pandemic, Oregon, Washington, and California governors decided they would work together on decision making. But as we've evolved through it, they've taken sort of independent stances. So no, the governments, to the best of my knowledge, I'm not at the governor's table. So to the best of my knowledge, they're not working together, but certainly within our state we are. And then we also have another initiative. I serve on the board of the Music Policy Forum, and we launched an initiative last April called REVS, Reopen Every Venue Safely. And we had 11 cities involved in the first year of it, working together to really figure out how to navigate this new environment we were all in that had such drastic impact. And so we work together. We do Friday live sessions at 11 a.m. every Pacific time every Friday. We do office hours and different meetings throughout the week so that we can all sort of learn from each other's experience. And the beauty of COVID, the silver lining has been that people have really pulled together to raise the tide for all, right? So I know that's a cliche, but people who have historically been competitors now work together to help each other out to survive this thing. And they have made relationships that I bet will last throughout their careers. So it's really been an extraordinary time.
I have to agree with that. Audrey, can you give us a little sort of rundown on what you do at Live DMA and maybe touch on some of the same topics that Kate brought up with regard to coordinating efforts across a big region?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so Live DMA is a European network. The network exists since 2014, so it's quite young. But we gathered some expertise that was relevant for the crisis, I may say. Well, so how does our membership look like? Live DMA gather national associations, and these national associations represent venues, clubs, and festivals. So at the moment, we have 21 members in 17 countries. So in total, we can say that we represent 4,000 venues, clubs, and festivals. What's important to know in Europe is that culture is not a European competence, it's a national competence. This is why we as a European organization, we rely a lot on our members, which are national organizations. We're a network of exchange. They exchange resource on how is the situation in different countries and how they can help each other. So it's a kind of a solidarity network made of peers exchange. And what's important then is that there is a national association representing live music venues in every European country, which is not the case at the moment. As I said, we represent 17 countries in Europe at the moment. This is not all the countries from the European Union. So it's quite important also to support venues when turning these competitive models with other venues when they share the same territory, to turn it into collaborative cooperation processes to form these national associations. On that, we have a tool which is kind of attractive. We call it the survey. We actually gather the data from the venues thanks to the National Association. So we share common criteria on finance, employment activities, and we publish reports about that. And with the COVID crisis, this data was very important because we were able kind of quickly to measure the loss COVID represented for the venues. So this is an important tool. And what's also important in this national structuration is that As I said, culture is not a European competence, but the European Union will support the recovery of the sector by giving some budget to each member state. And then the member states have to establish how they will provide a share of this budget for which sector. This envelope is not only for culture, it's for all the sectors. So now what we're doing within LiveDMA and with our members is that we are trying to put some pressure on the member states to be sure that they dedicate at least 2% of the European recovery plans to the cultural and creative sectors. So we as LiveDMA, we're doing it with the members of the European Parliament, with the people working in the European Commission, but we also need to work with our members nationally so that they can knock at the door of their cultural or European affairs minister to say, hey, all the different cultural organizations are requesting or asking you to dedicate at least a fair percentage of these recovery plans to the cultural sectors who still suffer a lot from this crisis. So we're also working on protocols and solutions on reopening venues safely, as Kate mentioned. The thing is that we exchange resource on these protocols, but we cannot say that there is one protocol that would fit every venue from different European countries. So the protocols are mostly something which is done nationally. But we're working on a European route map with the Commission to have the support from the European Commission, for instance, on the calendars for the reopening, because some European countries do have perspectives of reopening the venues thanks to vaccination, but in other countries, in other European countries, there's still no perspectives at all. So we're trying as a European organization also to balance the situation a bit from one region to another.
Realized I was muted, sorry. I can only imagine the challenge that you would have, because we know working, like we just referenced with Kate, state to state and how they act differently and could depend on who's the governor, what political party they're in, all these different factors come into play with regard to those reopening guidelines. And I can only imagine dealing with actual different countries and how they approach things. And I know in Louisiana, we're between two states that decided to open way early. And, we wonder here in Louisiana, even though our governor and our mayor in New Orleans has been very good at keeping our numbers in check, and we're smartly reopening, I would say, but I know it's going to be a challenge from that larger 35,000 foot view. Scott, I know we haven't really brought it over to you yet, but can you give us a little background on what you do with 2112 and how do you interact in sort of that, I guess, greater Chicagoland area, and what do y'all have going on up there?
Yeah, no, there's a lot going on, and we've seen incredible innovation over the last year, and to Kate's point as well, I think a huge shift towards the understanding that if we all work together, we're all better off, which has been our mindset from the beginning. But we're starting to see it, between government, nonprofit, private sector, all working together. A few examples of that: the city of Chicago organized a regional network of incubators and innovation hubs. We've had a lot of different incubators that are industry specific that have kind of popped up over the last few years, and actually organized conversations where we're all working together, we're all sharing resources, making sure that we're not duplicating efforts, making sure that that businesses, entrepreneurs, creatives, everybody's in the right space that's best suited to help them grow. The city also, through that program, launched a announced recently, all of their business attraction efforts are flowing through industry specific to the relevant incubators and innovation hubs, in the region that make the most sense. So we're seeing a lot more coordinated efforts that, have led to, on our end with 2112, multiple international partnerships in the last year. We have 14 companies that are joining us through the Italian government. It was a joint strategy with the city, similar with Ireland that we're going to be announcing soon, and that continues to be successful. On the corporate side, Comcast, we formed a partnership with through the pandemic, and actually the room that I'm sitting in now is the Comcast Business Startup Studio. They funded the build out of the studio, but then we partnered up with the city, with chambers of commerce, and different economic development hubs throughout the region, and the space is now made available for free for small businesses throughout the city to come in and create content. In a time that was already needed, but now with the shift to digital and through the pandemic, that the need for content and marketing was more important than ever. I think it also opened up international partnerships too. That there were a lot of entities that were aware of each other, that worked together. Always talked about working together, but the shift to virtual kind of expedited a lot of that. So, the last year and a half with California Music Tech and Meetum Lab, G-Beta Music Tech, we're all working together. We're all sharing mentors. We're all working together in a similar way that we're doing in Chicago to make sure that that entrepreneurs are supported in a more uniform way. And the last, I think there's a larger opportunity that we're seeing regionally and potentially nationally as well. That as we're understanding the strengths and weaknesses of our cities, the more that we can work together. And looking at Chicago as an example, being surrounded by Milwaukee, Detroit, Indianapolis, St. Louis. That if we all get together, work together, and understand what we're focused on, that we can share resources that way and make sure that we're not competing as well.
Yeah, it's interesting. And, I know that's something that we've seen a little bit of, mainly in the tech space in the New Orleans area, is sort of those little hubs of activity that can kind of spur development and cross collaboration opportunities or whatever. But I know we have a contingent from New Orleans coming to visit you tomorrow in Chicago, so I'm sure they'll bring back some great ideas. And I know there's examples of the kind of outfits that you've created there in different parts of the country and the world that are something to learn from, for sure. In my region, backing up a little bit, with regard to COVID, obviously, as Kate mentioned, our industry was definitely, I don't have to tell anybody, was definitely hurt big time. And it's been interesting to watch, some different organizations kind of spring to life, whether it's, initiatives like Revs or NEVA or NITA, and how they've been able to, sort of, like been mentioned already, find ways to work together for the common good, as opposed to seeing each other as competitors, and realizing that we're all in this together. And even from, the musicians versus the club owners versus the booking agents and things like that, we quickly realized that, we definitely need each other, and I think the same kind of thing has been going on in the digital space with regard to, as tech has taken over the music industry in a lot of ways with digital distribution and stuff. It's not that the music community has to really see themselves as partners with the Spotifys and things like that, as opposed to having to see themselves as adversaries. So, watching the legislation in the United States that's come together over the last few years, with the last year and a half or so, I guess, starting with the CARES Act, when a lot of the different organizations came together to really lobby and pass with the CARES Act, that actually included first-time legislation for the music community, and a lot of musicians that would get unemployment that typically would never be eligible for that in the past. And now that we have, I guess, the Save Our Stages, or can't think what is the new version
Better
of it.
Venue Operators
Yeah.
Grant.
I knew they changed it on us, and I never can remember what the new title is. But obviously, that just opened, and I know in Louisiana, for instance, we have the state is actually trying to help coordinate through our economic development department. I know our lieutenant governor's office, who oversees culture, recreation, and tourism, wanted to try and kind of create sort of guidelines for reopening clubs and venues. And I know we've pointed them towards REBS and some of the other resources that are out there. So it's really been interesting to see how we are all sort of coming together, and some other things that I've been really interested in, because for the Recording Academy, like I cover a 5-state region, and that includes all of Louisiana, Mississippi, Arkansas, up to St. Louis and Missouri and the Memphis area. And not that this is a COVID thing, but we've always seen ourselves as this unique corridor of up and down the Mississippi River, which is really where American music began, and has, grown to be worldwide, the music that comes out of New Orleans and Memphis and Lafayette, Louis, and things like that. So we've been trying to think of other ways to, like, how do we better organize and or find ways to collaborate, whether it's starting up touring networks and things like that. So it's been interesting to learn from the different things that y'all have going. I know we don't have a whole lot of time left, but especially for the folks from the United States, I know the American Rescue Plan and the funds that are being distributed to states and counties and cities is a hot topic for a lot of us. And I know in Louisiana and in New Orleans, I'm working at least in 2 areas, one of which is our lieutenant governor a month or so ago announced the new Louisiana Music Trail as a tourism piece, which they've never really looked at music as a tourism thing, even though we've got some of the biggest jazz festivals in the world, and there's festivals in a normal year every weekend somewhere in Louisiana, but they never really looked at it as like sending people across the entire state, even though we're 10 years behind Mississippi and 20 years behind Memphis and stuff. So we're trying to think regionally from that perspective, and how can we tap in and create this network with ARPA money, and then also region or more regionally in the greater New Orleans area. Similarly, how can we pull together sort of music industry incubators and things like that, that all pull together like a master plan and go after some of that money from more of the city level. So I'd be interested to hear from Scott and or Kate, if y'all are thinking along the same lines in your region, if there's some things that you're looking at that, or proposals or ideas that you're conceptualizing to move into that place with regard to going after some of the American Rescue Plan money. Kate, or you want to jump in if you got any ideas on that? Or
Sure. Well, I happen to work directly for the county executive, and he has transmitted a COVID recovery package recently, a $600 million COVID recovery package that has $31 million attributed to, or reserved for the creative sector recovery. So as I mentioned, our venues still are not open. Our performing arts organizations are still not open. They all have to figure out not only how to bring their people back, make their venues safe, but also to get poised for touring, right? You can't book a tour this month for next month, right? You all know that's not how touring works. So yes, that is with our county council right now, and we are very hopeful it will be approved so that we can really put some oomph into helping our venues and our people and our musicians recover from this terrible pandemic.
Sure. Scott?
Yeah, no, I think there's a huge opportunity for cities that are trying to leverage creative industries for economic recovery. And there's been a number of cities that we've talked to. I think in the past we've seen a lot of kind of piecemeal efforts as funding comes through with, research, with economic impact studies, with public and private, different initiatives that aren't necessarily always in sync. I think there's a huge opportunity right now with the funding that's available to create, a coordinated effort that, includes the research, design, and implementation all in one strategy.
Cool. I know we're just about out of time, so I wanted to give everybody an opportunity to sort of offer some closing comments. I think we could pick any one of these topics that we've kind of just touched on and spend an entire hour, if not more, on it. But Audrey, do you want to start with any kind of closing comments for the audience? Or?
Yeah, it's hard to have closing comments. I would have opening comments because
I
yeah,
know.
there
All
are
right.
none of it. It's fine.
We'll
Yeah,
blame Gigi and Storm for that.
yeah, exactly. Well, just the closing comments. I think that the cooperation is within the different actors of the music industry itself. Maybe in Europe, we also have a kind of different background, especially regarding music venues, because a lot of them are also non-profit organizations. So in this case, it's also maybe easier to have a cooperative process because there's less financial competition. But I'm also very interested in the cooperation between the music industry and the local governments. You mentioned a bit about it. In Europe, we're also trying to promote the initiatives where the public authorities work with the venues, for instance, to provide some open airs. So that the venues, even if they're closed indoors, they can organize some outdoors activities, especially with the summer coming. And just a final word, I think that yes, the COVID, I think, has accelerated this cooperation process between the different actors, but we still have one challenge is to go outside our boundaries. We've seen it with the management of the crisis that a lot of the solutions do not even depend on the cultural minister, but they depend on the health minister. And these are ministers where we have no contacts or no access because we're kind of used working only within the music industry or only within the cultural sector, which is a little bit broader scope, but we still struggle to collaborate more with different social or else or different actors, and now this is a barrier also in our negotiations regarding the management of this crisis.
Agreed. I know we had the same challenge in Louisiana, and we've been actually somewhat successful in engaging the health department and the fire marshals and all those kind of people. Kate, some closing comments from you?
I think we only have seconds left. So let's stick together. Let's lean on each other. Let's reach out to each other. Let's help each other. That's all I've got to say. Thanks, everyone.
That's awesome.